Fellas, our show's doing well, but every week I look at other shows like Joe Rogan or The Daily or The Yard who gets more viewers than us. And I think our option left for growth is to pay a wizard to cast spells on our viewers. Because on Fiverr, if you search for spellcasters, there's like hundreds of people who are like professional wizards and witches who you can pay to cast spells on people. And so I found one of the top ones, like hundreds of really good reviews. And I said, I host a podcast called Lemonade Stand with my two friends, Aiden and Atrioc. We have a rivalry with another podcast called The Yard that Aiden also hosts. I wish for our podcast to take viewers from The Yard and bring them here to Lemonade Stand.
I do like that.
Oh.
Could you wish pain?
Check this out.
On The Yard?
Ladies and gentlemen, the spell has been cast.
Is this from the person on Fiverr?
This is from the person. This is, I believe they're in Pakistan, and this is something they've been casting. They said they would do it every night for 3 days. And I basically said, look, I just need one viewer to come from The Yard, and it's a success. But then I realized, Aiden, a lot of people on YouTube used to watch our show, and then they left. And so what we really need is an extreme obsession love spell for stubborn cases. And I said, many of our viewers stopped watching the show over the last 6 months. I'd like our viewers to fall back in love with our show, to keep watching our show forever, even though they're being very stubborn about it. And this worked. She gave me a full report. It was genuinely very thoughtful.
She's in Nigeria?
Said, while not every individual will return, for optimal results, I encourage you and your co-host to continue fostering the authenticity and enthusiasm that define Lemonade Stand.
Wait, no, there can't be work on our end. We
No. This is what she said.
We can't have to change anything.
This spell thrives alongside genuine effort. This will harmonize with the spell's work. Pretty clear she's talking about you, Aiden. And that's when I realized something. Okay, what's really going on is our viewers are leaving our show and going to The Yard because they think you're putting in more effort. So I found Brianna Mary and I did an ultimate spell. This is somebody who
she's in India?
I asked for the ultimate wish, and 2 days later she got back to me and said, I am pleased to inform you I have cast a powerful custom mind influencing spell to make Aiden 10% less funny on the next 10 episodes of The Yard. Our show is safe.
Yard might not notice.
This is just think about it. I'm basically, if we're, Lemonade State is paying for these spells.
Yeah.
I'm paying a third of this bill to steal viewers from the show that I'm already on.
Yeah.
So funny you say
it's probably a net wash for you.
Yeah. It's actually, we're just transferring. You are contributing just as much to the world as long as you're 10% funnier on this show.
If this worked, we could have stolen from Joe Rogan. We could have stolen from, but you stole from Aiden's.
We stole from a show that I already am on.
We're like sharing a studio.
I did not prep for today's episode, by the way. I think this is all we need to do.
That would have helped too, though.
I can't believe when you were at the beginning of this episode, when you were scrolling through this as you were explaining, I was like, one, unbelievable how long you continued scrolling.
Yeah,
that there's this many options, and then you said the word hundreds of reviews, and then I looked, and some of that one has over 1,000 reviews.
Yeah,
wait,
from $45 plus fees. That person has made at least $45,000 casting spells.
I will cast extreme.
I mean, I did pay a $20 add-on for her to recast the spell.
You paid for an add-on
every night for next week.
To steal viewers from a show I'm already on.
Wait, this is actually a real money-making opportunity.
Maybe we should be doing this instead of Patreon.
What if we just cast custom spells? $50 a pop, hundreds of them.
All right, if you're on the Lemonade Stand Patreon, we're going to need you to unsubscribe and join our Fiverr magic spell casting.
I'm going to help our country for a second. Bring down Xi Jinping,
Dude, I'm way ahead of you. Guys,
okay.
I didn't say it yet. I spent $50 on a telepathy spell to convince Xi Jinping to join the podcast.
Well, that would be good. That would just be a nicer outcome for him.
The problem is that the wish is for him to consider it, not to come on.
I see.
So at some point, Xi Jinping is going to be like, oh, maybe I should go on that podcast.
To be honest,
say no.
dollar for dollar, the chance of that working is just worth it.
I had a genuine thought the other day about Xi Jinping. This is going to sound weird. This is a serious thought that I had. Does Xi Jinping ever have days where he just doesn't, he doesn't want to do it? Do you guys, does Xi Jinping ever wake up some days and just be like, I want to watch a movie. I want to just chill.
No.
The vibe I get from him is that he's really grinding, but you can't possibly not have days. because I felt lazy that day. It was like a Sunday. I was like, I don't want to do anything.
Maybe I'm falling. Maybe I'm falling for the propaganda,
Yeah.
but I'm like, no.
You don't
No,
think so?
I think he has that iron in him. You know what I'm saying?
I just picked Xi Jinping with the socks on, feet up on the couch, puts on the Chinese translation of The Departed, which is what I watched on Sunday.
Yeah.
You watch the Chinese translation
I'm learning.
of The Departed.
And just doesn't do anything. I wonder if that's the case.
Well, look, Xi Jinping is a bit of a superhero to the Chinese government.
Your transitions are incredible.
And
the spell's already working.
I would like to understand what's going on in the world of superheroes. We're also going to talk about craziness going on in credit cards, Aiden's trip to Sweden, and what he's learned about various European lifestyles and things, I believe.
yeah.
And
We
maybe a
lost
little
him.
bit of intel and the weirdness going on with the U.S. government at the end.
Yeah, I think that covers it. All right, I want to talk about superheroes. This is a business story that we haven't covered in a minute. And I think it's relevant to our viewers' lives because many of them fall right into the range where superhero movies have been a major part of the culture in their lives. I don't know if we can pull this up. Can I?
This is, I mean, I feel
You-
invested
yeah,
in this. I'm
yeah.
a big superhero movie fan. I grew up like reading comic books. I love, most superhero movies.
I didn't know you read
in
comic
general,
books.
or at least like these big franchises. Like I'm mostly a Marvel fan. I didn't really like grow up with DC or anything.
Sure.
I was like really invested in these like big franchises and movies and everything. And I have a lot of opinions on like why this has all ended up where it has now. And I still enjoy these movies to an extent. I think my favorite movie ever is a superhero movie. So
Oh, yeah? Name
what's
3
that?
superheroes.
my favorite movie ever is The Dark Knight. And I can
I thought your
That's a
favorite
kind of
was
a
the
superhero
Social
movie.
Network.
I guess it is.
yeah, it's like one of the least superhero
Yeah,
movies, so I'll give you
yeah.
that. But in general, very big fan. So I'm excited to hear it.
I'm excited to hear your opinions then. Let me just give you the business context here and we'll go into it. So, little backstory. Superhero movies through the 70s, 80s, and even 90s are mostly slop. They're few and far between. They have a few like Superman franchise was kind of a hit, but mostly they're campy, they don't get critical acclaim, and they do decently at the box office, but nothing special. They're just done few and far between on the biggest franchises. There's the Batman that Jack Nicholson does is the villain, and then around 97, they ramp up with the Batman series because this one was pretty successful, and then around 97 they get the George Clooney Batman and Robin. So we get this really, really campy, really terrible, low-reviewed movie with big stars like Arnold playing Mr. Freeze. And every line in this movie is an ice pun.
The Iceman cometh.
Please, show some mercy.
Mercy? I'm afraid that my condition has left me cold to your pleas of mercy.
He does a million more. He does like, what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age.
You're
And
not
then
sending me to
he's
the
gonna do a
cold.
million. Okay, you can pause. Truly terrible. A true critical flop. Doesn't make very much money. And Hollywood kind of decides, if we have George Clooney and Arnold Schwarzenegger at the prime of their careers and we can't make it work, superhero movies are dumb.
What
They're
could we
stupid.
possibly do?
Nothing could have fixed that. And so in the next 2 years, there's no superhero movies at all. I think there's only one, and we'll talk about it for a second. There's Blade. Now, Blade is very under-discussed. I don't even know it's a Marvel property, but Blade is actually the only thing that keeps the ember alive.
Let's go.
Because Blade is a tiny Marvel franchise from their new little fledgling Marvel unit, and it makes a nice return on his budget. Nothing crazy.
During COVID, when I moved in with Ludwig, Slime, and Nick, we would watch movies a lot. And we had a week where we watched the Blade trilogy, one movie each night, and then we watched all of the John Wick movies back to back to back.
Okay.
And the Blade movies kind of rip.
Do they?
The first Blade movie is kind of sick.
So if you haven't seen the first Blade movie, Doug, I just got one quote here.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Damn.
So Blade's
Okay.
pretty badass.
Yeah, and I'm in.
And it does not amazing. Nobody's writing about it, but it did good. It made its money back, plus more people were happy. And because of that, their other fledgling project doesn't get canceled. And that project is X-Men. Okay, we enter the 2000s now. This is the year 2000. This movie is a surprising hit. Even though it's kind of campy, even though it's got superheroes, even though it's got powers, audiences respond well. It gets pretty good reviews. People are excited about it. They want more. And it does pretty well at the box office. And then right after that, we get the one that really kicks it off. Tobey Maguire Spider-Man.
Yes, sir.
Cinema.
Yes, sir.
And I think a lot of people have a very fond memory of this movie and the trilogy of movies that it spawned. It just hit at the right time. And this was a smash success. I believe this is the #1 movie overall of 2002. It beats like Harry Potter movies. It beats Star Wars. It beats a lot of big franchises. And so Hollywood suddenly realizes that there's a lot of money to be made here. And so in the 2000s, we get the beginning of what will become the superhero dominance. So we get all these movies you can see here, and they start taking off. Not all of them are good. It's hits and misses, but they make a decent amount of money, and people are clearly interested. There's a hunger for it.
Mm-hmm.
So in the 2000s, we got in total 31 superhero movies and 3 shows. These are sort of, basically a boomer of the internet now, these are the ones that I remember and that I like, okay? And then at the end of the 2000s, I don't have a picture for this here. Maybe we'll add this in post. We get Aiden's favorite movie. We get The Dark Knight at 2009. And we get, in the exact same year, like 1 month before or after, we get Iron Man. Okay. And these two combined give superheroes everything it was finally missing. It gives it critical acclaim, cultural acclaim, and it also gives it the beginning of what would become the Marvel web of franchises, everything interconnected. It gives you watch one, you have to watch the next one, you have to watch the other ones. So those two combine, and superheroes get heroin, they get cocaine, they get shot off into the stratosphere. So over the next decade, this is the 2010s, this is where most Zoomers got into it. We go from an average of 3 movies a year and almost no shows per year to 4.5 movies a year and a lot of shows. We get a ton more Marvel. This is Avengers kicks off this decade, and it goes all the way through the decade. And then at the end of the decade, we get Avengers Endgame. 2019. And this is what you might say is the culmination of this decade that everyone attached to. This movie does absolutely insane numbers. I believe it's the second highest grossing movie of all time. Doesn't quite beat Avatar,
It's
which
crazy
is crazy.
that Avatar's still one, to be
#1.
honest.
And that's not even counting inflation.
Cultural
That's
icon.
insane. But it's seen all over the world. It's this huge cultural touchstone. And then we get COVID, okay? And then we get into the 2020s. This is our decade now. Now, I've annualized these numbers. This is not the actual total number. This is as if you basically have to double it because it's only been 5 years. But we're getting an annualized number of 6 movies a year and 4 TV shows a year. Way more than we were getting before, but it's after Endgame and everyone's kind of possibly moved on. I want to talk about it. So this is where we're in now, where we're getting more superhero stuff than ever, but the critical acclaim is down, the box office is down, and we're getting movies like this. So Madam Web comes out recently, flop. Eternals comes out, gigantic budget, like $400 million budget, flop. Kraven the Hunter from Sony, flop. Thunderbolt, even highly reviewed ones, though, are now starting to do underperformed. We got Fantastic Four just came out. This is going to use, listen, this is a well-reviewed movie, lost $100 million. Fantastic Four, fairly well-reviewed, probably going to lose, I think, a lot less, maybe 20 to 50. And now, starting right now today, there are no superhero movies for the next 6 months, which has not happened since 2011. We haven't had a gap like this. Hollywood's like tried for the past, basically since the 2020 started, and they've been diminishing returns.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's finally like they're soft giving up. And this will be the first year since 2011 without an MCU film in the domestic top 5.
That's crazy.
Which is like not happened. And so the last chance for Marvel, I'm just going to wrap this up. We can talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
They have one last shot on goal. They have Avengers Doomsday coming Christmas next year. They spent an absolutely gargantuan amount of money to get Robert Downey Jr. said he was done. His character died. Tony Stark died. He said, I'm done with Marvel. They said, what if we gave you $200 million, the most any actor has ever been paid for a movie ever? Second highest is Keanu Reeves because he took like percentage points on the Matrix trilogy and got like, no one's close. So RDJ is going to get $200 million. He comes back. He's going to play Dr. Doom. This is their last chance. If this fails, it seems completely over for Marvel. This is like everything's trying to build to this. And this is where we talk about it. This is when we talk about it. What's next? So I want to also posit a question. Let's talk about this all. Give your thoughts. But I want to ask, if superheroes are over, Hollywood is not going to suddenly become creative. What is next? And I think the answer, if you look at the stats, is video games. Okay? Mario Bros did a Billy. Minecraft movie did a Billy. Sonic 3 did way more than Eternals at 1/3 of the cost. This is what it seems like we're leaning into. So is it a superhero into video game era? Do superheroes still have juice? I leave the question to you guys. I want to know what you think, but that's my little catch-up presentation. Aiden, you look dumbfounded, but you're a superhero guy. Give me your context going into this. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, maybe it just hit at the right time growing up, right? But my understanding is with Marvel specifically, they were a company in a rough spot, and they were in a position where they were actually licensing out their properties,
Yeah.
like their stronger properties, like Spider-Man. That's what Sony owns the license to that character. They made the movies. And then Iron Man was their big gamble or big step forward of taking a property that wasn't very popular, a superhero that wasn't very popular, and let's see if we can build our own movie, like reform this character, and then they end up building a broader franchise out of it, right?
Yeah.
And I think although there are other superhero movies, like there's all these DC movies like Justice League and Wonder Woman, these like Man of Steel, that sort of era of DC universe movies. I think the main thing we all think about in the past 15 years is the Marvel movies and the universe they built out with Avengers, right?
Yeah.
And I do think there's this idea of there being like too much or too much saturation of these movies, but the reality is it's that they're bad. I think that is the main thing. We basically got a decade of Marvel movies that were on the whole pretty good. Like most of those movies were pretty okay. And even if there were bad ones, they were formed into this pretty cohesive story that came together in a really interesting way that we hadn't seen in any other media franchise, not through movies before, right?
Sure.
You got to like watch most of these movies over the better part of a decade in a plot that basically made sense, and all of these characters come together for the first time in a fashion that you just had never seen before, and the payoff was good. And then after that payoff, right, you need to follow it up with something substantial. Like give me a reason to continue watching, right? And I think except for the Spider-Man movies, which are incredibly successful, like
Yeah, they do really
any
well.
Spider-Man
Yes.
movie that comes out goes crazy.
That's
right?
the only big hit, by the way, so far of the 2020s, I think, is Spider-Man No Way Home.
He's like the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
I feel like Spider-Man is like Marvel's exception to the rule right now. But for all the other movies, there's no like story to jump back into because Endgame like cleaned everything up, and now you have to build up a new thing for me to be interested in. It can't just ride off the hype of superheroes anymore. It's more important for the movies to be good now because there have been so many. And I think there was this era right after Endgame came out where they were all stinkers. Like they just suck, dude. Like they're not going in any interesting direction. The dialogue sucks. The writing in general sucks. They didn't really feel like they were building in a cohesive, interesting direction. The main villain that they were setting up and had cast ended up being a domestic abuser, and then they had to navigate firing him. Like there was all these things that made it shitty and uninteresting. And now, after years of that, right, in an era where you're pumping out more movies than you ever have, and they also are bad movies more often than they were before, you've tainted the reputation of superhero movies on the whole. And this is also not helped by the other side of the coin, which I would call DC, basically fucking it up every movie they put out too. So DC movies on the whole have been...
Tell me you didn't love Black Adam?
DC movies have been terrible for such a long time. The only good DC superhero movie I can think of is Robert Pattinson Batman. That's the only good one that's come out in recent years. And so now we've gotten to a point where I think these studios understood this broader criticism and this broader fatigue that is being felt. And they finally started making some kind of good ones or some kind of okay ones, right? Like the Superman movie that just came out or the Fantastic Four movie is apparently pretty decent. I haven't even seen that one yet.
That's what I want to say, though. So your point that bad movies should be correlated with box office results is true. This is plotted right here. Like a movie that gets a worse score generally does worse in performance.
It's a bit of a boy who cried wolf scenario where they went through maybe 3-4 years of pumping out dog shit. And now they've finally managed to start making some decent ones again. But the fatigue had already set in, right?
Yeah.
I am not excited to go see the next Marvel movie, even if it's supposedly really good, because you've broken up the reason for me being engaged and following the story that existed in the previous decade. It was like, I'll go see the next episode of the TV show, basically, because I'm engaging in this broader cultural event that's going on, right? Or it's a character that is so well liked and so well established that it like supersedes, like what Doug said at the very beginning of this episode, right? The Dark Knight, that's not even really a superhero movie, because it's kind of not. Like, I get that it has Batman in it, and I understand that surface level it is a superhero movie, but that movie rips because it's like a gangster film.
Yeah,
and it's like, and Batman's like one of the least important parts of that movie. and it's just kind of awesome. In the same way that the new Batman movie is more of a, detective thriller, like the movie Seven. And those are the characters or the types of movies that break the mold a bit more. I guess what I'm saying is, for the generic superhero movie that we had for so long, there is no reason to step up to the plate and go see it anymore. They have to fight their way out of, I'll save this for a plane ride one day category.
Right.
And that's how I feel about it right now. And I do think the Doomsday movie, Robert Downey Jr., the branding, they haven't done a big Avengers movie in a while. I think that makes me excited still. Like, that gets me in the door. But if I were to compare this to my love for another franchise, I love Star Wars. I was
going to say that.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I love Star Wars, and I feel, so for me though, I guess it's both oversaturation and decline in quality. It's the both. Once they lose you, they lose you. I don't trust it anymore.
That's the thing. If they were always, it wouldn't matter. The saturation wouldn't matter that much if they were all bangers. If they were reinventing,
that's what I was going to ask. Like, do you feel like if after Endgame these were really good movies, would the fatigue have continued because it had just been a decade straight of this anyways?
No, I don't think the fatigue would have continued if they were good, because you could continue to reinvent the genre and do things. It's like, you aren't locked into a formula because it's a superhero movie. You can do anything with these people. The movies can be creative and interesting.
Well, what if there's 4 of them instead of just 1?
Yeah, it's like, is there too much of a good thing? Is there a point where, could it be 4 or 5 or 6 a year?
No,
even if they're all.
Oh, I meant
quote,
4
good.
heroes in one movie, like the Fantastic Four.
That is also part of the issue. I would say that it's too much of a good thing is only the case here because, one, it's not that good of a thing to begin with, and the movies all follow very standard formulas of uninteresting plots or characters that it's like the new movie, like whether it be, Shang-Chi or Doctor Strange, they don't feel that different in their like plot or their writing than the movies that came out 10 years ago. And they're just mid. They're mid to bad over and over and over again. But I think we're trapped in this world of superhero movie means the plot and the characters need to all be thought about and structured in a very particular way. Whereas when you look at a movie like the new Batman movie or The Dark Knight, an older Batman movie, right? You can take a character like that and take them out of this like weird traditional world of what superhero movies have been built into,
though, right? Like,
do something interesting. They're not trapped. You can just, people respond well to like interesting things. Now they've dug the hole, so it's harder to get out of it, right?
Yeah.
But they didn't have to dig the hole to begin with, I think. I think they pumped it out on the slop line, and maybe.
But it worked. So this is not like a culture war thing, but I don't think Captain Marvel is considered one of the greatest Marvel movies. But that movie, before Endgame, made like $1 billion. I mean, that movie did really, really, really well. The average tier movies before Endgame were doing pretty well. The slop was doing, I mean, they were overall quality better.
But the movies are slop. No one was saying Captain Marvel was a 5-star movie. It was riding the hype of Marvel being popular, right?
Yeah.
And you dug the hole along the way of like, you cannot continue to feed mid slop and have it make $1 billion. Eventually it will stop. So you need to be creative enough and willing enough to like change things and do interesting things and make better fucking movies. Otherwise, eventually you get to the point we're at now. I think if they were continuously like reinventing the formula or creating some new giant compelling story, people wouldn't be fatigued by superheroes inherently.
So do you think
I think properties like Spider-Man and Batman kind of prove that.
Okay, what I'll say? Superman is doing pretty well this year.
Yeah.
It's well reviewed. I think it's the first superhero movie in a while to break 7.5 on IMDb, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
It is still going to underperform the Batman.
Yes.
It's still going to underperform Man of Steel, the last Superman movie, which is actually lower rated. It's doing fine.
Mhm.
You know, it's going to make its money back, but it's not a smash hit. And then Fantastic Four, fairly well reviewed, going to not do that well. So you're saying that's like if they keep up this good pace, they can get it back.
Yeah, I think if you
'Cause-
keep pushing, like keep being creative and keep pushing things in a new direction and strengthening your position, eventually people will warm up to the idea that these movies are good and interesting again. Like if I were like Spider-Man,
Mhm.
like why is Spider-Man so popular beyond the recognition of the IP, right? I think the newer movies are basically like pretty good teen comedies that a superhero happens to be in. Like they're fun and interesting to watch in a way that the other superhero movies aren't.
Yeah.
And like and Superman, I think there is something to be said about like the inherent popularity of the IP through history. And like, sure, like a new superhero that you've never heard of could only ever be so successful compared to something like Batman or Spider-Man. But in general, I think they just need to nail enough movies in a row, like, and then people will be back on board. And they haven't made, and they've done a really bad job at making good movies for a
Who
long
could have
time.
predicted that Kraven the Hunter would flop? I don't understand. It's such
Like,
a well-known IP.
When you said that, I was like, this is not real. You've AI generated a picture and a title. I've never heard this in my
can you
life.
imagine signing the document at Sony to give $100 million to make a Kraven the Hunter movie and think, yeah, this is a good idea. This is a good use of my funds.
The guy who signed that makes so much more money than we do. That's just crazy. Every one of the executives has been signing these off makes so much more money than us.
Oh yeah, they're all crushing.
Yeah.
Oh damn, they're crushing. Right?
But they are
Why
panicking.
are we not talking about them?
They are panicking. Like
Yeah.
They are like they've tried it and it keeps working less and less.
I think that they're suffering. They're suffering from all of the mistakes of each other in that people do categorize superhero movies together in their head, right? And all of the bad movies, regardless of who they come for, and like how, and because of how many bad movies have come out for so long, people will they'll be inherently fatigued for a long time.
Distrustful.
And now there has to be a way that you break that mold. But in the same way that we've gone through decades of superhero movies being reinvented, right? It'll just happen again.
How do you explain Sonic fans? They
Sonic
buy
fans?
every game.
That's
and it's
different.
Been
That's
shit
different.
for
The Sonic fans
40
just
years.
beat off the Sonic. That's
It's
a
all a furry
different.
thing.
That's a different mechanic that I can't account for.
Okay, I want to give a slight counterpoint. And here's what I think.
Sure.
Is it possible? I agree with you that a good movie will probably make more money than a bad movie. And if they make a bunch of good movies, people will trust them. And I think that's true. But I think the era where you could mix in good movies with mid movies and get by is kind of over because it seems like culturally superhero movies are going to the back burner. Like
Sure.
it's like how rock music was bigger in the 70s and 80s, and then we switched to hip hop, whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
I think there's a cultural shift away from superhero movies as younger generations just turn away. Like it just, or people.
I think there's probably something to be said here about giant IP that becomes successful, makes an incredible amount of money, or a formula that makes a bunch of money, and then giant company rides the trend until and beats the dead horse until they can no longer print the same amount of money on it, and then they have to move on to something else because they can't successfully reinvent it.
Yeah.
Like that's probably happening here in the same way that it's happening with it happened with Star Wars. Like the movies were so bad
Yeah.
that they're not going to make movies for a long time. Like they're not going to try it again. But eventually they'll be able to come around and do another attempt.
Yeah. Yeah. And to be fair, like I'll see a mainline Star Wars movie. They got me from my childhood. Like I'll still see it. But man,
I will go see it. I will go see it.
They all the shows.
You guys are in a toxic relationship. I just want you to know that.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. You're being abused.
But it does. But don't you think it does? It does change. I don't know.
I'll be different this time. I swear, we won't bring back Luke Skywalker.
It is different. I think the big thing that's changed with something like Star Wars or something I can think of like Game of Thrones, where you so publicly do a bad job with your franchise that you actually stain people's ability to continue engaging with it without thinking about how bad it was before. There's something to be said about franchises going in that direction. And it's not that I won't go see the next like mainline Star Wars movie. I probably will, but I don't know if I'll see it opening weekend. I don't know if I'll be as excited. I stopped watching all the like shows. Yeah. I stopped engaging in like all the side content around it because when I thought about Star Wars, I was like, they took something I loved and they got rid of all like the extended universe shit that I liked and replaced it with absolute dog shit. and now I don't feel excited about Star Wars anymore. And with this, it's the same thing. It's like Endgame is over. They closed the storyline. So what do I move on to next? I don't really care about going to see these new superhero movies because there's nothing to participate in. But now I'm not locked into video game movies as the next step, but there's probably some sort of next formulaic franchise sort of thing that you could just walk into.
What if Hollywood executives turn the sound up?
Okay.
What if
I'm putting myself in there.
We get Robert Downey Jr. and pay him $300 million.
The lemonade stand.
No, just to come back again and again until he's 98 years old. If this works in Doomsday, that's what they're going to do.
Yeah, the first lesson was superheroes are popular, and the second lesson was Robert Downey Jr. is popular. I mean, what I would say if I was a studio executive is get Congress to fully ban TikTok. We need to preserve the American shitty movie studios and protect them from these awful apps that are taking their attention. I think it's TikTok, right? You're giving them better stuff. Unlike the high quality, nutritious food that we gave them in the 2010s, now children are eating slop on the internet.
Is there anything that you guys can think of besides what is the next gigantic movie? Is it really video games? I hadn't thought about it until you brought it up right now.
No, I think it is, man. There's a bunch of, I don't have the list in front of me, but there's a whole bunch of video game movies have been greenlit. Like Zelda, like every big IP you can think of, Hollywood is ravenously like, oh, this is where the money is.
You know what? When you're saying that right now, I'm like, that's not going to work. It's failed forever. And then I realized it's the exact same pattern. 2010s, they tried to make all these video game movies like Doom. Remember that?
Yeah, it was terrible.
And like Hitman and all these things. And they've all flopped super bad. And then these three, Sonic, Minecraft, and Mario Bros, are probably the equivalent of Iron Man and Dark Knight.
I agree.
That the studios are going, cool, we're locked in for the next 10 years. Yeah. Fucking send it. Oh,
I think we're going to get Zelda. We're going to get a fucking Pac-Man movie. We're gonna get.
You guys remember the Prince of Persia movie? Did you guys see that?
Oh yeah, that was terrible. That was terrible.
Like Need for Speed and everything.
Isn't there like a Forza movie, or am I just thinking of Need for Speed?
There was a movie where a kid plays Gran Turismo.
Gran Turismo. That's what I was thinking.
That's another one.
The Gran Turismo movie.
They play ads everywhere.
I think all three of these franchises have had a movie, none of which succeeded.
Dude, when they make a Madden movie. They actually make a Madden movie like every year.
Oh, dude, the spell's working. That was really funny.
You know they're gonna make like $1 billion Halo movie. You know there's gonna be a.
They already tried to make a TV show.
They couldn't get it to work, but I think
pull off the mask. It's Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. is Master Chief.
It's Jack Black and Robert Downey Jr. for the next decade.
That's what I wanted to say about nostalgia. About his So even Spider-Man, which is the biggest hit of the 2020s for superhero movies, the only one that I think break $1 billion, maybe there was one other, but that's the big one. That movie was all nostalgia. It was Tobey Maguire. It was Andrew Garfield. It was like, obviously Spider movies are doing well. Yeah. But the best ones are nostalgia bait for a better time. You know what I'm saying? Is it gonna be all just like remember this, like as they?
I just watched the new Captain America movie on the flight.
I haven't seen it, so I wonder what you think. Because that's an example of like.
And truly one of the worst movies I've seen in the past 5 years. I'm not kidding. It was so bad. There was so little redeeming about it. And I understand that there will be a general fatigue no matter what if you pump out a bunch of the same or similar product, even if they happen to be really good individually. But it was remarkably bad. And it's like, this is what you can't be mad that your formula isn't succeeding
When
when
that's
you're
what you're-
pumping out that level of dog shit. It was insane how bad it was. So that's what I'm thinking about is like, dude, if it's just I understand it's probably hard to make a giant good blockbuster movie.
Yeah.
But they're not sending their best.
But if they had the original Captain America come back and pat him on the shoulder and they teamed up, would you smile and go, "This is my childhood. I love this." And
What? No.
no,
I wouldn't let Chris Evans get away with that.
If you went into a McDonald's and you ordered the food and you took a bite and it's terrible, but then Ronald McDonald walked out and patted you on the shoulder and said, "Remember how good it used to be?"
Yeah.
But that wouldn't do anything for you?
I don't think that would.
That's kind of what they're doing right now, but they raised the price.
Right.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we have any more thoughts or, Doug, is there anything else you want to say about this? I mean, are you a superhero movie guy? Are you like a,
Nah, I'm
Not
not even
really?
like a movie
Wait,
guy. So I've been fully out for a while.
I do have a closing
Okay.
thing.
Yeah,
Could we
we
go
can
to
take
the box office list? I want to see the current year's box office list that was one of the slides, wasn't it?
you wanted, what do you mean?
Didn't you have like last year's box office top 10 or something on there?
Yes, I did. This one or like this year?
Okay. I have a thought. This is semi-related.
Okay.
See the movie How to Train Your Dragon.
Yep.
Right there, right?
Yep.
There, what do you, and Lilo and Stitch. Okay, one thing that I'm surprised hasn't run out of gas yet in the world of film is
Live
this
action
insane live action re-release of old films. And maybe it's just the nostalgia thing you're talking about, where people are just so attached to these movies from their childhood that they can't stop their idiot brains from going and seeing
Will
these.
Smith's biggest movie is Aladdin, the live action remake. Will Smith is he was a top box office guy for 10 years, and his biggest movie is the live action Disney remake of Aladdin. It's crazy. People love those fucking movies.
I know. I think my actual maybe top 3 hot takes is that if you are excited to go see one of those movies, I don't think you should be allowed to watch the movie anymore. I think you need to go back to school or maybe I don't know. They need something in their brain
Dude.
checked.
Okay, you're picturing like a 27-year-old who's like,
That's who it is. That's a lot of
That's
who it
not
is.
who it
It's some
is.
of it's kids,
No.
but a lot of it is
it's
Disney
like
adults.
people who grew up with it are now parents, and they're bringing their kids because they want them to enjoy a slightly worse version actually of what they grew up with.
This is
But-
the worst part of me. The
Yeah.
worst part of me hates that they are successful. The fact that Lilo and Stitch remake made $420 million is disgusting to me. And I can't quite phrase why to you.
That's funny.
You think How to Train Your Dragon should have gotten more?
Yeah, because that's
Well,
your childhood. You like that more.
I mean, that movie does that. I'd honestly say that movie's better than Lilo and Stitch. But that's
Have you
besides
wait,
the
wait,
point.
wait, wait.
Have
Have you seen both of those?
Yeah.
You are the person you're talking about, Aiden.
What?
Neither of us have seen it, and you're complaining about these.
Wait, you mean
you
the
saw
remake?
You saw the
Yeah.
remake?
Oh, no. I've only seen the original.
Oh,
Yeah, we won't see the originals.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen the remakes. The only thing I'm actually surprised about here, and the note I wanted to end it on, was the amount of these movies that has come out and the length of time they have come out for. I'm surprised they're still doing so well. Like maybe they haven't been coming out as much and as often as I feel that they have, but in a conversation where we're talking about fatigue and like over releasing a certain formulaic type of product, the fact that these are at the head of the box office so often is mind blowing to me. And I wonder why. Maybe it's just because they're like exact recreations of something that were so successful in the
I
past.
think they're taking proven smash hits and remaking them. It's like, and there's enough time that's passed. If they remade Lilo and Stitch again in 5 years, I don't know. There's a line somewhere. Anyways, interesting. Let us know your thoughts. If you are more of a movie connoisseur, we'd love to know why you turned away, why you're still interested. Again, one more thing I wanted to say, because I looked at the box office data. The opening week for the new Superman or the new Fantastic Four or Thunderbolts was actually fantastic. They still have this diehard group that is more excited than ever when the movies are actually good. But the drop-off is massive.
You've lost the general public.
You've lost the general public. You haven't really lost the diehards, or just there's less of them. But the general public no longer gives a shit about the larger Marvel web or even, Superman are like there's the drop off has been much bigger, and
Yeah,
that was noticeable.
I guess it's all the people on the peripheral that feel the fatigue the heaviest, right?
Yeah.
Because I think about people like my girlfriend who are like so checked out of this genre, even when it was hype, but she still saw Avengers Endgame.
Yeah,
you know, like Avengers Endgame was just like you just went.
You're out of touch. If you don't see it.
And I think there is a giant group on like the outer edges, which was, the bulk of people who were just deciding to go to these that feel the fatigue the most and are also the least likely to engage in whether or not the movie is good or not. So, interesting. I wanted to talk about a little. So I just got back from a trip. I went on vacation.
Where'd you go?
I want to set this up. And speaking of your girlfriend, listen, Doug.
Okay.
This is our last chance. He went to Sweden with his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And this was like the trip to introduce her to Sweden and see if she would like it enough that they could move there together.
Yeah.
And so every night I have been paying witches and I've been praying that she would not enjoy it so that our baby boy Aiden would not be able to go to Sweden. And then I message him when he's there. He sends me pictures of parks and strollers and green fields and grass. And she goes, she loves it. I love it. And I was like, well, we lost him. This is our last hope to keep Aiden in the great country of America on the beautiful. I sent him pictures of the 405 to try and keep him here.
You did? Dude, he did send me a photo of the just back-to-back traffic on the 405. And it's like,
I
don't
tried
you miss
my
it?
best to like show him the beauty of America. I reminded him we have a great president, Donald J. Trump, and I just it didn't seem to convince you, so I don't know what else can get through.
I mean, have you ever thought about the fact that there is
Audio listeners,
it looks like racism is frowned upon harshly.
Doug is Googling the cons of living in Sweden.
The cons of living in Sweden is that racism is frowned upon.
I'm just going off the list, man. Police are useless except with regard to prosecuting crimes.
Wait, that's wait,
Like parking fines.
Tell us about Sweden,
How'd it go?
Aiden.
Okay, I'm not here to tell you about my trip specifically, but there was something I really interesting I learned while I was there, and like Atrioc said, the intention of this trip was I was bringing my girlfriend there for the first time to introduce her to Stockholm, surrounding like towns, and my friends there to give her a better idea of are you ready to move here? Because that's my plan currently. Is I'm gonna move there in like a year and a half, and through the week we spend, we hang out with a bunch of different people. We know like virtual Anna Cramling, some other personal friends of mine.
Wait, by the way, I did use the picture of the yard with virtual in it.
Yeah.
For the witches. So he might be
Of
less
course.
Oh,
funny.
he's gonna.
So virtual is gonna
wakes
be
up
less
with a
funny.
crick in his neck.
Just Anna touching his shoulder, and she's like, "What's wrong?" This is like, I don't know. I'm just
You
not
seem
feeling
off.
as funny anymore.
Babe, you seem about 10% worse
That's
off.
funny.
But so I lucky enough to like know and have a lot of friends there already, and that's part of the reason why I want to move. But while we're there, we're asking them all these different questions about the specifics of what do you like, what don't you like, what are the good and bad things about living in Sweden. And I think when you're raised in America, you have this general idea that even if you reflect on like quality of life in Europe positively, you have this idea that they have way higher taxes. And so you have way less money. But the trade-off is you get a bunch of benefits in society, right? Sure. You pay the taxes and you get a healthcare and a welfare system and all these lovely things from it. But when I was talking to a good friend of mine who just got an entry-level software engineering position at a bank there, and we were talking about his salary and what his expenses are, I was starting to do a bit of mental math in my head. And I was like, wait a second. And have you ever had this thought is like, European people you work with, they always seem to be on vacation. They always seem to be out of the office. Like, and I kind of wondered, if people in Europe have way lower like incomes or like way less disposable income because of all the tax they pay, how do they go on all these nice trips all the time? How do they get to go out and do all these lovely things on their vacation or like, do things like that? Yeah, I had this passing thought in my head. And I went through and I mathed out what salaries would be like in Sweden versus Los Angeles and a bunch of other American cities when you consider all of the committed, like required to live expenses that you have in the US to see what your actual, like after tax and required expenses, like money you have left is. So where I started was I just took my friend's salary who has this job. And so he makes about 61,000 US a year right now, which is on the higher end in Sweden. And here, I'm going to pull up this chart. So the way I went about this is the expenses that I considered like required to live are your health insurance, your car insurance, your rent/mortgage, your utilities, your groceries, internet, phone, gas, public transportation.
Do you want to send me the link? I'll put it up on screen.
Sure. So these are the considered expenses that I considered like required for living, right? And I just compared it to living in Los Angeles. And so after tax, if you look at this salary of $61,300 and look at it after tax in Stockholm, it's about $47,200. And then the same thing in Los Angeles, after tax, it's about $49,400. And then you go through...
Sorry, Atrioc is adding in an expense you missed, which is a Cybertruck.
You're gonna
which
need
costs $120,000.
That's a
Did you
required-
add that in?
required-
This is
required
America.
expense. That's going to make it negative.
Do you know in Sweden the government just gives you a Cybertruck?
It's free there.
The way I estimated these was basically making the required expenses about as minimal as possible. Like considering lower end studio apartment, base utilities, not anything above what you need, like lowest end health insurance plan that you could get reasonably. And that's how I generally estimated these expenses. And if you consider all these things, when you look at this same salary in these same two places, your after tax and after expenses income in Sweden, in Stockholm, is $27,600, which is much higher than the $14,300 that you're left over with in Los Angeles on the same salary. And I found this immediately frustrating because it feels counterintuitive to this narrative that I've been fed my whole life. But I wanted to have an honest approach to this whole conversation.
Yeah, the salaries are
because
higher
of course
in
the
LA.
same job would have a higher salary in Los Angeles. Thank you, Brandon.
I just wanted to bring that up because you're not mentioning
Thank
the
you.
salary would be higher.
And if you look at this position, if you entry level software engineer in Los Angeles at a bank, he's looking at probably $90,000 a year starting point, maybe $95,000. And if you run the same thing, consider all the same expenses because base required expenses are going to be the same in this situation no matter what. He's left with a higher amount, $5,000 higher in disposable income than the person in Stockholm.
If it was 50 cents more, it'd be worth it.
With 33,800 about, right? So a $5,000 difference. Okay, fair enough. You do have a higher take-home income on this similar job in between these two places, right? But then, so I have my thoughts on that to begin with.
Okay.
But I decided I wanted to take a look at, well, what happens when you just look at median income in these places or per capita income? It depends on what you're looking for. You can use a bunch of different numbers for these things. I tried to be as neutral as possible in what I chose. And I have a bunch of different options here. But when you look at median income or median personal income in Stockholm, it's about $43,000 US dollars for the year. And if we go through the same, math that I laid out, or that you're left over with about $18,000 dollars of disposable income for the year, right? Considering all the same expenses. And then if you treat this number's a little high, I think, but we could say the median Los Angeles income is 72. I think there's some discrepancies here, but let's take a higher median income number that I came up with, which was 72. And you're left over with not much more than the 18,000. You have $21,000 left over after all those expenses, right? And then if you take a lower median income measurement in Los Angeles, which is like $60,000, you're left over with a much lower amount. And then if you look at median or like per capita income in Houston, in Nashville, where it's $45,000 and $47,000, the number you're left over with compared to the median income in Stockholm is $14,600 you're left over with, or $12,700 you're left over with. And all of the expenses for those cities, I tried to estimate specifically to those cities, to be clear.
Right.
I wasn't like rolling over the Los Angeles numbers to each one of those. My broader point that I want to make here is that I found this incredibly sad and frustrating because the quality of life for what you get, even if in the best case scenario where you have the same job and you're making a little more money, like say $5,000 more over the course of the year, in this example with the software engineering, is that you live in a place where you have higher rates of crime, including higher rates of violent crime, significantly more. Sweden, among Europe, one of the higher rates of gun crime in all of Europe, still considerably lower than what goes on in the United States. You have lower societal trust, more expensive education, poor public spaces in like things like parks, bad public transportation, no sick days, no parental leave, of which you get 400 days combined between you and your spouse that you get to use over the first 4 years of your
The
child's
presentation he gave his girlfriend on the plane.
sick. You get paid sick days if your kids are sick. You can take a week off from work, and then past that, if you get like a doctor's note that your kid is still sick, you get to stay home, paid for by the government. 25 days of mandated vacation per year minimum, paid for. You get to live in a walkable city. You have stronger public welfare. You have public health care. You have a lower life expectancy in the US. You have worse childcare, higher child mortality, higher costs of the healthcare itself. With worse outcomes, better food and nutritional standards, and a higher quality of public education for your kids. You have all of those things, and maybe in some of the situations I laid out, sometimes you make less money. Sometimes. And
Less freedom, though.
if you take just median income, if you take the general median income from both places, you actually have more disposable income in Stockholm. And you get all of those things. And I will be honest, as I dug into this, I felt kind of betrayed, because to me, growing up, there was always this idea that like you only got all of these benefits with the fact that you paid more in tax and that you had more income for yourself. But for the average person, that doesn't even hold true. In most cases in the US, the average person on an average salary or an average paying job ends up with less money than you do in a place like Sweden. And then even on the high end, if you're someone who is striving to become a billionaire, there are more billionaires per capita in Sweden, over double that of in the US. I think it's almost 3 billionaires per million in Sweden, and in the US it's 1. So if you really cared about becoming a billionaire, you have a better shot in Sweden. And I think it is to spend a whole week there walking around in a city that is significantly cleaner, at all of these immaculate parks, finding out that I get paid leave from the company that I would own in that country by the government when I want to take paternal leave. I always thought that the paternal leave didn't make any sense for me because, if I set up my company, I thought it was a legal requirement for the company to have to pay for my paternal leave. Sure. That's what I thought. It's not that. The government pays for your paternal leave. So even though I own my company, the government will send me money to take my paternal leave.
Based on your salary?
Based on the salary that I pay myself.
I assume that the corporate tax rate is higher though, right? For that company?
The corporate tax rate, Swedish.
So theoretically, could I start a company right before I'm about to have a kid, and pay myself a salary of $900,000 a year, have the kid, the government pays that salary while I'm on paternal leave.
This is why you want to move to Sweden, you sneaky motherfucker.
So interestingly enough, corporate tax rate in Sweden is actually slightly lower than in the US. 20.6%. This is the other thing. As I'm talking to my friends there.
Wait, hold on. They lowered it this year.
Yeah, it used
from 32. They did a big beautiful bill too.
But even when they had theirs higher, right?
It was 32% until this year.
It was lower than our previous rate of 35.
Yeah.
So that part aside, Sweden extraordinarily business friendly. If you set up a business there, there's all of these things that encourage you to do so over surrounding countries. It's a big part of the reason why so many of the large companies in not only the Nordics, but Europe are set in Sweden or Stockholm specifically because of all the benefits that they have for business owners there. And a lot of the people that I talked to there who are business owners were explaining to me the ways that you like basically pay yourself and handle your taxes in Sweden as best as possible. And I was like, this situation is better for me, I think, than it is in California. And I was surprised by that because I'm a high income earner. So
Sure.
all of these things and like stereotypes perpetuated about what you sacrifice by moving to a country like that, which is one of the first questions people ask me is, well, aren't you going to pay a bunch more in taxes? Isn't that going to suck? And I was already on board because I was like, no, I'm buying into a society that takes better care of me, my family, and all of the people around me. But then financially, I actually am not, I'm basically in the same place I am in California, if not better. And for my kids, probably better. Like if they're just going to pursue normal careers. And I'm not going to say there's no trade-off. I do think there's unique career opportunities in the United States that I don't think exist there sometimes. But I think for the average person, this whole like debacle and rabbit hole of me going into this was I felt very betrayed. It made me angry that this is the case.
Give Atrioc and I a second to defend America.
Yeah.
What do we got?
I was going to say freedom. Freedom was a big one, but I think he's got a good counter to that.
Money. We have more money. No, he mentioned
He
us
sort of got
billionaires.
that one. We were going to talk about trucks. They barely have any trucks in Sweden.
Do you bring up trucks at all?
He didn't even include car payment in Sweden for this because they don't have a car, I guess.
Because you don't need a car.
Kinda lame.
Wait, hold on. Are you assuming no car for people in Sweden?
Yeah, in Stockholm because you don't need a car.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
So
I
that's
think and to be fair, like I think there are cities, of course, there are cities in the US, like, you know, if you lived in New York or even when I lived in Seattle in college, right? Like I didn't need a car, but I think in general, in American life and in a city like LA, a car is a required expense. It's not, you do not have the same degree of choice over owning a vehicle in a place like Los Angeles as you do in a place like Stockholm.
Okay, so help me understand something. Everything you're saying makes sense, but when you compared a software engineer in Sweden versus a software engineer here and said they would make more here because salaries are higher, the take home was $5,000 higher.
Yes.
So
yes.
my understanding from this is like if you are a high earner, you do take more in the end from being in America. So I get what you're
Yes.
saying, like
Yes.
about this system supporting people who make, let's say, the median or less in America, and that makes sense.
I think
But what you just said of like you felt like you were told you're gonna have to pay so much. You are a high income earner, so won't you
Yeah.
be paying substantially more in Sweden?
so. Yes, with an asterisk.
Okay.
From my understanding, if you're a business owner specifically, and that's how I would be applying for my visa, I might be in a unique position where I might be paying similar or less tax than I do now because of the way that you distribute profits from your business and the way business profit is taxed there versus a normal salary. But I just treated this as salary to salary.
Right. But
Does that make sense?
Salary to salary, you would get more take home in America, right? That's
Up until
like if you're a very
Yes.
high income earner, right? It
yes.
feels
so like,
like
I have an example. I think I
for
did
the average
it. Oh, I
high
wrote it down.
income
Like
earner,
if you,
it sounds like there is
yeah. So if
there's a reason why they might be like, no, I should stay in America.
So if I made, so as an example, right? I totally
So
concede.
that's our defense. Rich people win.
I totally
Rich.
concede that. I totally concede. Well, rich people who are paid salaries but don't own companies.
yes.
Yes.
Point for America.
So, like the example that I did, I don't have it on the sheet, which was if you made, say you've made a salary of $450,000 a year, your take home in Sweden on that salary in Stockholm specifically is about 236,000 US a year. That's what your take home would be. And then in California, your take home would be $269,000 a year. So about a $33,000 difference. Pretty significant, honestly. But I think when you have that, the two main points I want to make here is that even though that difference exists, right? You have all of these things and benefits that you sacrifice for not only yourself, but your kids, your family, and your community around you. You like, is it worth that salary difference to, walk through the streets of a place that is, has a ton of people who are homeless everywhere and like don't have homes and like you don't have access to healthcare and your kids have to go to an expensive private school instead of a public school and like all of those, like, is it worth all of that trade-off, or should you just be buying into a collective benefit for society around you? Like I would argue that the trade-off there to begin with is bad. But the thing I wanted to stress is that for the median income earner, for the average person with the average job, you walk away with more money in Sweden still. And that's crazy because those people are giving up nothing. They actually have more money than the American does. And then you also get all these benefits. And I think that runs very counterintuitive to everything we're told about these systems and what Europe has over the US and these common like US versus Europe arguments. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think that's fair.
Like if I were to give you an example for my girlfriend who, makes a very normal salary in comparison for her job, she would make slightly more money there. She would make slightly more and then have access. And then if we had a child, she would have 200 days paid of maternity leave. And
she would miss American Idol, though, I think, among other things. I think
she wants to stay her entire life in a country that's never won the World Series.
The shame, the embarrassment.
Unbelievable.
We didn't even win the last baseball international tournament either.
We won the World Series.
It's called the World Series, Aiden.
Jesus Christ.
I'm talking about the baseball World Cup.
I know, and we're talking
about the
World
Series.
The World
Remember
Series.
the World Series.
That's where the world plays.
Dude, when the Grateful Dead does a world tour, you think they go to Sweden? No.
Probably.
They go to Britain and they go to America and they go to Canada.
Probably do. This ties into some stuff we talked about on the show before. The idea that, I guess you're sort of countering the idea. You're saying they're not even paying that much more in tax, but the idea of like the equinox effect, where people are happy to pay a little more if they notice the difference.
If you make less than because of the way Sweden's tax system works, if you make less than $70K US a year, which there, because they have lower salaries on average, most people do, you pay less tax than you do in California.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing I've heard from people who have come from Sweden to here is if they're high earners, they want the higher salary. That's the thing. That would be the big counter argument. Is just there is a higher take home at the highest level. Yeah, and people who really can earn the most.
I think, to be clear, it's not like there's zero reasons to come to the U.S. I think that's an important part that I totally concede. Is like there are situations from what I can see. The main things you would take advantage of is if you have a job in a field that pays you a really high salary in a specialized industry that is like more prominent in the US. So things I can think about is software engineering, right? If there's not a version of being like a senior software engineer at Amazon where you're paid $500K a year in Sweden. It doesn't exist. I know a bunch of software engineers there and their salaries are way, way lower, even at big companies, right? I think that the tax situation for people who own businesses, I'm finding out in Sweden, is actually extraordinarily friendly. I'm actually surprised by that. There was some Norwegians I was hanging out with, and they were saying one of the main reasons that so many big companies exist in Sweden and not many big companies exist in Norway is because of the differences in policies around business taxes and wealth taxes between those two countries.
Interesting.
Which I hadn't really thought about, right? Because from my perspective, it's just like those two countries are basically right next to each other. They're on all the charts together. They're very, very similar. But they're describing the difference in like the opening a business between the two.
And then the last thing I'll say is that Sweden population 10 million. That's the Los Angeles metro area. It's
actually less.
Yeah, Greater Houston. That's New York. I mean, it's just a bigger country with in that 50 different states, all have their own rules and regulations and laws and state taxes. And it's just difficult on a 300 million person scale.
But not
to
get reactionary.
Yeah.
But I'm going to get reactionary. I am. Does it not make you a little mad? Like, it's crazy to me. It is the level of benefits and quality of life there is astounding to me. Like, and this is stuff that I learned on this trip, even though I've been looking forward to moving there and have been there many times before this. And the day-to-day enjoyment, the number of like families I saw everywhere, the number of like the parks and social benefits and all these things my friends just openly talked about and were like, yeah, this is just what we get. And this is what it is. And then I came back to LA at LAX and fucking walked to LA exit, got an $100 Uber to get home, and then walked through like a street of trash.
And you knew
like,
you were home.
LeBron James gave you a nod through the train.
As I walk past like a field of like people that live in the street that should have like homes or apartments and like not have to live on the street. Like it doesn't make any fucking sense, dude. As my parents pay like, tens of thousands of dollars to send my little brother to college. And it is a fucked system. It is embarrassing that it is this way in this country. I think truly, it made me, I don't know, because I feel like if you make the fact that you have less money when you make $45,000 a year in Houston than $43,000 a year in Stockholm is like, I don't know, that's crazy to me. If you consider these expenses, right? I'm sure you can like fuck with my numbers, and I tried to be honest and like pick as many like low end averages and everything. I didn't want to like cheese it, but
I mean, the big
fact
thing
that
is
it's
car,
even
right?
close.
You have a huge gas payment and a huge car insurance payment, and I assume a car payment. You didn't include
I didn't
on
even
this.
list a car payment. I'm just assuming this person owns their car in full. Just like they
Which
have a
is
used
rare.
car that they have no in full. They're not making a car payment, which there's a bunch of things you could include in this that most regular Americans are paying on top of this stuff. But I wanted to make sure it's like, no, only list the things that you need that are basically required for living, which is like utilities, rent. You basically need to have a car, and you have to pay gas to move the car, and then and shit like that. Yeah.
I mean, I agree. I just don't know what to add. It's like, in part, I think it just underscores the core fundamental cultural divide, which is one of saying we are going to prioritize the ability to focus on your own individual success, even at the expense of the broader collective. And that seems to be the American ethos, for better or for worse. And
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. Like, I don't want that. Like, I hate Los Angeles. It's incredibly depressing. But
I think to not retread anything, I think that's actually a really good idea to end on, because I agree with you. To me, that's the value proposition you think of as an American, and that you think of when you compare
it's
yourself
deeply
to these
rooted
other
in the
countries.
American dream, right?
And
The thing that we reinforce over and over, and so many of our like parents and grandparents were able to,
And to a degree, I think if that value proposition were true, then you could fairly make that choice. But through this exercise, what the thing that angered me the most was that the value proposition that you described is not really true. You don't really get more money. You don't really get more freedom.
I'm saying for rich people, right?
No, yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
But the American dream is bought into by a collective society that has endorsed it, right?
Right,
I would
but
say
it's
it's a
the-
collective American idea. Yeah.
Yes, but it's the idea of like, you're worse off if you're poor, but if you can make money through the opportunities that America provides, you will benefit more than if you did that somewhere else, right? That is the pitch, right? And so obviously the majority of people are left behind in that system, which I suspect none of the three of us are stoked about. But I mean, that's how you preserve it, right? Is then you have all the people who are successful saying, this is good, we should encourage this type of thinking, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense in a way. It's, not what I would prefer, obviously, but
takeaway of this is that, they're getting taxed roughly the same. Their after tax for the same salary is roughly similar, which means the tax dollars are just being misallocated, right? They have enough tax money. If they have more tax money.
You mean
in
America has more tax money?
Like they could spend that on similar things. They're spending it on other things.
How much
One of these we talked about a lot.
Yeah, that's a really good point. How much does Sweden spend on the military every year? We spend $1 trillion. It's things like that I wonder. Of like,
Doug, I'm glad you asked. It's lower.
It is? Wow, okay.
Imagine it was $1.2 trillion.
It was all going towards.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about budget and how we spend money, and I don't think we spend money very well.
Yeah, I think it's misallocated. So a huge part of it is that. Yeah, again, percentage GDP, 1.47. That's pretty low. So
Yeah, they just joined NATO too, so I wonder if it's gonna.
They all committed to 5, so that'll change. We'll see. But yeah, I think we would like to see, we've talked about it a million times on the shows, but public transport is like a thing that allows people to spend less on cars and that and have more take-home pay.
Yeah.
And that is something we could spend our tax dollars on with the money we have now, but it's allocated elsewhere. It's on other things that is that we need people to make hard choices to move those things over here or raise taxes if you want to, but one of the two.
All right, stop teasing us. So did you like it?
Yeah, I couldn't get his real feeling on Sweden.
I couldn't get a read on this.
I could
Aiden.
not get a read. He was being so mystic about
Okay,
it.
wait,
It's just
I have
it's
something
just
to say.
the weird colors for a flag. though, you know? It's like
The red, white,
the
and
old
blue.
stars and stripes.
The old stars and stripes
Timeless.
is hard to beat, bro.
Okay, if you don't mind
Dude, we
me,
got 50 on them.
if you don't mind me saying this, for the entire time we've been talking about doing this podcast, which is over a year now that we've been like kind of planning and discussing it, you've been saying you're about a year and a half out from moving to Sweden. Is it still a year and a half? Will it continue to be a year and a half?
No, I think I said 2 years when we started, right?
I think it was a year and a half.
Okay, well, I think now it's down to like a year and 4 months, 3 months.
Okay, I get to be like unleashed from LA. I'm now like I'm pulling the trigger once you leave, basically. So
Yeah, you're gonna
you
go
will
to
free me from LA.
Japan.
Japan
And Atrioc is
or
going
Portland.
to forever love the
He's
405,
stuck on the
dude.
405. Just
That's good though. It keeps us
Shaking
grounded.
my head.
It keeps us grounded. You know, you don't want
You guys will
to.
Like
miss the
you'll be
smog.
stuck on the ground on the out on the asphalt.
You'll miss it. You guys will miss it. You'll be begging me to come back.
I turn on the tube in Japan. Wait a minute. No World Series? What am I to do?
Yeah.
Well, actually, let's move on.
All right, no, actually, hey, this sort of relates,
Okay.
which is an interesting conversation about whether the United States government should be involved in private companies. So that was pretty interesting. Before that, I'm going to really quickly follow up from last week. I feel like I had a little egg on my face. ChatGPT 5 kind of sucks. I was telling Brandon how we got to talk about all the goods of ChatGPT. I've been hearing universally negative things, and my experience has gotten markedly worse over the last week.
Yeah, it got worse.
It got worse.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
But how does it just get worse if it's the same version?
Well,
My-
so they do update it. They're constantly updating it and changing it. So it's not the same. It's the equivalent of like
What if ChatGPT but worse? Sam Altman after the blunt, dude.
if you upgrade from Windows 11 to Windows 12, like you're on a new big set. But it's they're going to keep
No,
updating
okay,
it.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Well, okay, my understanding is also they are hitting their energy limit. Like as
really?
more users are flowing into ChatGPT 5, they have to keep making the service worse to keep the speed and quality.
Damn.
Like that is what at least Sam Altman was trying to like hint at, was like they have so much demand and they can't get enough energy online for data centers online for this new thing. So it's actually getting worse in real time as more users are added, which is like the opposite of what you want. You know, like a social network gets better the more people that add it. Like this gets worse the more people that. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
Continue.
No, I mean, there's a bunch of issues. A programming content creator friend of mine, Theo, like made a post where he's like, I need to apologize. When I was trying ChatGPT before it launched, it was incredible. And what is out now is worse. And I feel like I misled everybody. And like, I sort of feel the same last week on a very small scale. Like I'm like crashing out at it multiple times a day now because how annoying it is to talk to when practicing a language. Like,
Oh, yeah?
every day I'll be like, stop prefacing your questions with 8 sentences. Just tell me what this is in Japanese. And it'll be like, absolutely, yeah, I hear your frustration. Let me just talk quicker and get straight to the point. Let's get right into this. No more dealing with this. Let's just go. And I'll be like, shut the fuck up. You're doing it again. And I'm like,
That's like an I think you should leave sketch.
dude,
That's-
I'm going crazy. Anyway, we know on this show AI is perfect and there's no downsides, but this
Yeah,
is
it
one
is hard,
rare
yeah.
instance where there was some frustration. Okay, so last week, interesting story where Intel, the giant company that makes CPU chips, they have been struggling a lot over the past few years. That is maybe a topic we can get into if we have time. But there's another interesting thing that is happening in this whole, as Intel, one of the American like tech giants who is in theory should be part of the future of AI and computing and all this stuff because they make some of our best chips. They're American. That's fantastic. They're doing bad. Like they're doing actually quite bad. So we can talk about that as well. But one of the things that is happening as people are trying to figure out how to help Intel is the US government, Trump, is like floating the idea of the United States government investing into Intel and holding private stock. They are going to, in particular, Intel said they wanted to open up this giant factory in Ohio to manufacture chips. That doesn't seem to be happening. And they're like, we're not going to have money. We got to push this back to the 2030s. Trump obviously really pushing for more jobs, investment in the US. He So their idea is like, okay, if we as the United States invest into it, you guys would then be able to get this thing going. We get jobs, we get all this stuff. And so I was curious about this. I was like, I don't know of any instance where the US government has like bought stock in a company and just like invested in it. So I looked into it. There are cases over the entire history of the country where the US government comes in, but almost always it's either you're failing as a company, we want to help because this is going to be economically devastating or going to lose a lot of jobs. Here's a gigantic loan. Hopefully you pay us back. That's one. That's happened a bunch of times.
It's like the banks, right? In the
yes, but actually even then, with the 2008 financial crisis, that was the other example where they actually do buy a big stake. So they bought, for example, 34% stake in Citigroup during the financial crisis. So they actually owned part of the companies, but then within a few years, the banks recovered and paid the government back.
Yep.
Or GM and Chrysler, like our car companies, went to bankruptcy. U.S. Treasury bought 60% of them, of GM, 10% of Chrysler. And then by 2013, 4 years later, they had bounced back. The U.S. sold all the shares. So it's kind of these like temporary things where the U.S. government comes in, uses money to help like prop up a company, get them back on their feet. They succeed. It's a great success story. The U.S. government is totally out. And this would potentially be the first case where the U.S. government wants to just invest into a healthy company. Intel is not doing well, but they aren't dying, and they're still very valuable. They're not going into bankruptcy. And the idea is like the United States would just hold pieces of it and have influence on it. That is very unusual, and I would say pretty un-American. I mean, that's like the hallmark of the Chinese government, right? And that book we read is all about how the Chinese government basically oversees all companies. Like you have to have a Chinese Communist Party member in your, you have to have like these, monitors in your companies. So I'm just curious, open question. What do you guys think about this?
It's weird that they didn't start with GameStop.
Yeah.
A strategic investment in GameStop would have
also a company that's doing really well, very healthy.
Buy more of it right now.
I mean, there's a strategic thing here, right? Which is like, so the foundries that make chips are extremely important. And right now, all the good, latest and greatest ones are in Taiwan. And the second latest and greatest ones are in Korea. Samsung's got the other foundry. And then the third best, which used to be the best for a long time, is Intel in America. Now they barely even make their own chips. They outsource it to TSMC. But the idea is eventually either get TSMC into America to build factories there, because we're all under the assumption that eventually China will want to take Taiwan. And they have to plan for that future where it's not, where we can make chips outside of Taiwan. Or Intel gets on its own feet. And that was like the plan during the Biden years where they simultaneously enticed TSMC to come to Arizona and also gave a bunch of money to Intel to make foundries. And one of these will work out and we'll get chips in America. And the TSM thing is kind of soft working out and the Intel thing is not working out at all. It's like a total flaw. The company is just floundering. It's just getting worse and worse all the time.
Yeah.
So, I can see the strategic reason for putting money in. It does feel weird to have the government take a permanent stake in a company with no plan. That doesn't, first of all, it just gives them a weird leg up on their competitors.
Is it just the difference between this option and going a subsidy route that you have more, you have more direct say in the direction that the company can move in?
A bunch of things. It would be a partially state-owned company in perpetuity, right? And that's very different than how the United States has been involved with any company. They aren't a shareholder who like owns part of the company and can influence the direction through that.
That's what I mean. It's like, do they own it?
There
they
are
get to be like on the board, or they have voting shares or something. Now they get to directly impact the direction of.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So they would have influence of the company. I mean, they would just be a buyer like anybody who buys stock in the company. I think one angle to this that I thought was interesting is looking at some of these patterns in the past where the U.S. has provided a giant loan to one of these companies that then comes out on the back end and succeeds. If the United States had held that, they helped, they like came in, they injected money into this company, helped them recover. In theory, if they had just held the stock, we as a country would have made a ton of money over the decades as that company continued to grow and benefit from that. And that's what a normal investor would do, right? They're like, I'm going to invest in this company. And then if they do really well in the long term, we get to have returns. And in some of these things, there were actually tens of billions of dollars coming back to the United States that they made. But in most cases, it's like it kind of averages out to being even.
I want to say I fundamentally have a problem with that because if you're a competitor to Intel, they have this inherent advantage of they have the government's ear. They are it's just a weird thumb on the scale that is weird. I want to say this is part of like a dartboard of ideas that Trump has been throwing around Intel. First, he tried to get the CEO fired. He tried to make him quit or whatever. He said he was a Chinese spy, the CEO of Intel, and he had to be resign immediately.
Well, to be fair to Trump, he's Malaysian, and Trump probably doesn't know
the difference. So first
That's
said
like
that,
when the TikTok CEO
Yeah,
is
he's
getting
like, I'm
interviewed, and
Singaporean.
he's like, "Are you work with the Chinese? You're Chinese?" And he's like, "I'm Singaporean." And, and then he has to say it like 3 times.
So he first did that, and then he said he's a great guy, and he took it all back. And then he said, we're going to get TSMC. We're going to force them to buy 49% of Intel, and that'll make them move their stuff to America. And then they kind of scrapped that idea.
TSMC was like, no, we do not want to go buy another company. We're doing really well.
We're doing
We don't
fine on
wanna-
our own. Intel sucks.
I don't know why I keep bringing them up, but like if McDonald's was like Trump came in and was like, you gotta buy Burger King. Like McDonald's was like, no, we would rather make more McDonald's. What are you talking about? We don't want this.
Yeah. And again, a big part of it, and that's why I'm concerned with this idea for many reasons, obviously the competition thing, but also like throwing good money after bad is the story of the last 10 years of Intel. A lot of people and different governments and Democrats and Republicans have found ways to try and give Intel more opportunity and money than they probably should have earned, and they have squandered it. They've done really poorly. So the idea that, another massive government fund to them is going to turn things around, I'm skeptical of. I think Intel is a mismanaged company with rot at the core that, they're going to need to go through the hard times.
You don't think Lip Bhutan is going to turn it around?
I don't think so.
You don't think Lip Bhutan? I
He's
love
like the
Lip Bhutan.
third CEO in 4 years.
No,
or whatever.
Lip Bhutan is badass. I talk about Lip
Maybe.
Bhutan.
They're going through a few. They're going through that fast.
They've gone through a lot.
They've gone through a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my issue would be less with them buying the stock itself and being involved, because I think there could be some sort of approach that's interesting there. It's more to do with the chasing a company that has historically underperformed. Like in an American context, how much does you buying stock in this company actually able to change the trajectory of it? Can you really correct the management issues at the center of it? It doesn't seem like it from the outside, from a basic investor's perspective, doesn't seem like a great investment. I can see the general ideas behind it of like why the government would want to do this in a general sense, but the specific company they're choosing to do it with feels like the risk.
It feels like the 2008 financial crisis of like, well, you guys fucked up really bad, but you're important, so we'll save you. And it's like, that sucks. That's a shitty way to have a company operate. It's like they just have this permanent parachute that we as taxpayers pay for, to be clear.
Yeah. So I'm uncomfortable with it, but I do see the need to have chip making somewhere in America. Though I think the TSMC stuff is kind of working. The Arizona plants, as far as I know, have been doing better. They had a hard time finding Americans apparently willing to work as hard as the Taiwanese chip guys with the insane on-call hours and everything. But they are producing good yields, and it's like it is
The Americans had the gall to ask for 2 sick days, Aiden.
Imagine the Swedes,
All
okay?
right? Swedes would show up for 10 minutes. They would go to their park and hang out with their child all day.
I want to be clear. TSMC would hate the Swedes. I actually have a question for you guys, because I think there's an interesting thing here that I've thought about sometimes is in the wake of 2008, a point that gets brought up a lot is that the banks got bailed out with taxpayer money, and that is something that angers the average person. But when you look at what actually happened, I'm not a villain chair, dare I say. Am I a hitter for the banks right now? Who knows? Is that we got paid back. All the money that was spent on bailing out the banks was returned to the government
Okay, I have
with
a
interest.
huge counter to this.
So I want to hear your
Okay.
thoughts on that.
I'm chomping at the bit because I've actually answered this before, and I think I've heard this talking point. Yes, the money they gave directly to the banks got paid back.
Yes.
But it's like if you are a Pokemon card investor, okay, and you have gambled massively on Charizards. You bought a whole ton of Charizards,
Yes.
and then Charizards tank. If I give you money, invest in your company, and then simultaneously at the same time print a bunch of money out of thin air to buy mortgage-backed or Charizard-backed securities and get the price of Charizards back up, then your business is suddenly healthy again, and I get my money back. But that's not, that's not, we didn't really get our money, but we got the money back from this specific part.
What's wrong with
But we
Charizard?
lost the money we spent propping up the housing. That money was just thrown away.
Yeah.
So, yes, we saved these companies. There was still at great cost. There was still a huge increase in the money supply. It still had these terrible knock-on effects. So I just think
This is a good answer because my own pushback to this argument is that you're still bailing out a system that was abused and kind of incentivizing people pushing the boundaries
we just
of legality
reinflated
and
the
bad
bubble.
behavior. But this is a way more nuanced version of that.
And then the second part of it is, as you said, there's this, there's moral hazard, which is the term that, like, if you are on Wall Street and you're a thinking, smart, sharp individual and you recognize, oh, if I'm this size and I make this error, I will get this bailout. And you have to factor that in the future. And so the moral hazard is I should take more risk in the future because I will have this higher percentage chance of getting a bailout. This is a smart thing to do. And so once they factor that in, they take, we just get an increasing of risk because we've proven that they will step in at a certain point. And when you don't have that risk, you have to play safer. Now you don't. It's just the meta is evolving. And I think it's bad. I think it's bad to send that message. And if you don't bail them out earlier, say even before 2008, but 2008, if you start there, you take the pain then people grow up with the tree grows straight. Everyone, they learn the limits. But if you keep trying to kick it down the road, the problem gets bigger and bigger. And the bailout required, if it happened now, is like 10 times bigger. It's just, it's astronomical.
Yeah, we just print more money.
So, and we're not the first government in history to think about that. And like sometimes problems arise.
What?
That's all I'll say.
Zimbabwe printed money and they ended up fine.
They did end up fine. You're right. Because you can always knock off that last 3 zeros. I mean, right.
We actually did solve it in that one episode. I was like,
So-
you just white out a couple zeros off each of the money.
Everything's good
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
I mean, it goes back to Rome. Even Rome, they couldn't print money in the same way, but they would just reduce the gold value. They would just put less gold in each coin. And like you couldn't notice it, but problem solved. People
They
are
were
finding
doing
ways.
that. What's the term for how they're like filling chip bags a little less every year?
Shitification or whatever. In shitifying the currency. Yeah. So I just, we're on that path. Is what we'll talk about it in that book club. If they talk about it a lot in the Ray Dalio book, but we have a few minutes left. I don't know if there's any breaking news updates I wanted to talk to you guys about. I don't know if you guys saw. Do you guys remember the last time Zelensky and Trump and Vance all met in the White House, and it was you didn't say thank you, and they had the big blow up and the big fight?
Yeah.
They had a follow-up meeting yesterday. And I want to say the bar was in the floor, obviously. Probably one of the worst meetings I've ever had.
But
it was better. It was better. I was saying this, I was like, I hate to give anyone any credit here, but and here's Zelensky showed up in a suit. He said thank you.
Fit check. How'd it look?
He said thank you 19 times. We counted it. He opened by saying thank you like 14 times in a row. I'm not joking. He's like, I just want to start by saying thank you for this wonderful room. And it was almost comical. It was comical. Like clearly he had just been coached and he was like, I'm going to say exactly what I need to get what I want. I'm not going to. Vance didn't say one word. He didn't interrupt. He didn't. It was a much better meeting. And the reporters, which I got to say, the reporters in those meetings are trying to derail it. They're trying to ask the most incendiary question to get Trump to say something crazy. Trump, for the first half of the meeting, the best I've ever seen him in being like, this is off topic. I've never seen him do that in his life. But then he cracked, of course. And he started ranting about Joe Biden and Obama and how he saved crime in DC. And
it is funny when Joe Biden gets brought up as a talking point, but he was the previous administration, was the previous president. I think it can be relevant at times. But when I think it's really funny when he sticks it to Obama because it's like it was just so long ago. It was just so long ago.
I mean, he, came out of that was his first presidency, right? Out of Obama.
Yeah.
That makes sense, I saw a stat the other day that like 7% of British people consider themselves as having a rival. Like
the nemesis.
Or
it was
the nemesis.
yeah.
And then 17% said there's like most say they don't have one, and one says 7% say the nemesis, and then somebody's like 17% say they used to have a nemesis.
And then they slayed them.
Right? It's like, what's going on there? How did you solve that? So I do feel like there's still a little bit of that nemesisness going on here. Dude, Zelensky opened not only by saying thank you a million times, he also handed Trump a letter from his wife saying thank you to Trump's wife, which is like
I did
kind of a
that.
brilliant diplomatic move. Honestly, it's like a really
No,
nice
he
gesture.
did a couple things. He clearly was ready for Trump's style this time around. He called America and your country's so big. He kept saying how big it was. Like, he
Damn.
kept talking about big. He said,
Can't say that to Sweden,
we have to,
Atrioc.
we need your help for this thing so we can buy the best military stuff in America. Like, your stuff is so good. It's,
Yes.
and you can see Trump's eyes light up. Like, he's like, wait, this guy's. So it's crazy that the meta is evolving around Trump. So many leaders are figuring out that, like, if you just say he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize and he's great and big,
It's like a quick time event.
yeah, and he's like a QTE. Yeah, I don't know.
QT. By the way, QT is crazy because that's like the same amount of syllables.
Don't fucking
No, it's one more.
go back to
One
Sweden
less.
at this point. Go back to Sweden. Okay, you've already lost your American. privilege.
You're ignoring our traditional American values of calling things big.
Yeah, and shorting them.
I should be the one who's tilted here. I heard I weighed in on the Ukraine war negotiations last week.
Definitely agree with that.
And that's our show,
100%.
guys. Thanks for watching. Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Hey,
watching.
thank you very much.
Bye.
Appreciate
See you
it.
next week.
Goodbye.